Welcome to the Say Yes Movement podcast. Hey, Heather, how's it going?
It's going good, John. Happy Monday. You sound like you're full of energy, which is fantastic. Tell me
You know,
about
it,
your weekend.
yeah, it's funny that you say I sound like I'm full of energy, but I don't really feel like I'm full of energy today. Today was I don't know. Today was a bit of a hard start, right? Like
Ooh,
I've
okay.
been
Say
feeling
more.
that. Yeah, I've been feeling that this past weekend. So this weekend, I did a variety of different things, but one of the things I did Saturday morning is I went for a run, and I posted on TikTok on how difficult that run was for me. Like,
Okay.
and I struggle. I hate to use the word struggle, but sometimes I find it incredibly challenging to go do that, right? So I'm like, oh, shouldn't I? When you sit on the fence so long that it almost hits a point where it's like, okay, now there's no time to go do it. I'm like, okay. I was like just kind of like hovering on that line. I'm like, I gotta go. I just gotta go. I gotta go. I'll figure it out. I gotta go. So I ended up changing the route a little bit. I slowed my pace. I did more of a walk than a run, but I got it in. I squeezed it in. I still did my 5K. But there's days that are tough, right? Like there's going to be
Yeah.
those moments that are tough. And but I love my bike ride. So that's Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, depending on what's going on either days. Those are the days that I go riding. And yesterday, man, I was crushing it with the bike. I was like, my pace was
Oh,
good.
you actually needed that rest. That's what happened.
Oh man. Well, I don't know if I actually got the rest, but I went and yeah, it was good. I even stopped for a croissant and an espresso in a new place, and yeah, it was good. It was good.
Well, I
How about
think,
your weekend? Sorry.
John, my weekend was great, and on Friday we talked about give yourself some grace and just listen to like what's in your own way, and it's usually yourself. And if you're in your own way, then what can you do to change your mindset, your environment, your anything? And so that's what I did this weekend. And I'll tell you,
Mm.
as soon as I got momentum going, there's been weeds growing in my garden and I don't know if I mean, real weeds, but that's sort of what it felt like I was doing, is pulling up all these old weeds. And, once you get started, you fill one bag, then you fill the next bag, and then it looks good, and then it feels good. So, sometimes you do one thing so that you create a new environment for yourself, a new feeling for yourself. And then that catapults you to the next and the next. And all of a sudden Patrick's like, where's my this, where's that, because I'm moving stuff around the house and cleaning up. And so it felt really good. But it all started from our conversation on Friday, which is give yourself grace. So do I have a whole long list of things that I would have loved to get done different than that? Absolutely.
Mm.
But my
Mm.
brain was not able to do that until I created an environment and a physical feeling in myself that I'm powerful and capable. So I literally pulled those weeds, and now I'm ready to go this week because the environment is completely different for me, inside
Nice.
and out.
No, I kind of feel like that's the theme maybe for this week is you got to pull out the weeds, right? The things that
Mm,
are just, so it's interesting because a good friend of mine, Pat, which you know as well, she talks about the little annoyances, the little what are they called? Not nuances, but the little things that just annoy you, right? The little things
mm.
that make life incredibly inconvenient for you, right? It's like having a busted spatula, right? Like you have a broken spatula. It only costs a few dollars to go get a new one, but you keep using the old one because it's, in your mind, it's like way more difficult to go to the store to pick up a new one, right? And how many times do we sit there looking at things, knowing that they annoy us, to take up space in our head, to take up space in our life, and we do nothing about it? It's like one day I'll go do that. One day, and then like one day never really shows up, and the whole
Yeah.
time it's occupying space. And it's funny because I had a conversation with the coaching client around the same topic, right? Like there was something they needed to do, right? And they've been wanting to do it for 2.5 years.
Whoa.
And I'm like, what's stopping you? And I'm like, forget what's stopping you. This is what we're going to do, right? We're going to take action on this right now. So you're going to put me on
Yeah.
pause, and you're going to they needed to make a phone call to somebody. I said, you're
Okay.
going to make a phone call to somebody right now. And I'm going to wait
Mm-hmm.
until you're done, and then we just get it done. And I'm like, why do we do that, right? Why do we let the weeds grow in our gardens? And, at some point the weeds overtake the garden and there's no more garden. It's just weeds, right? And I'm doing that too with my lawn in the front. Like I got weeds and I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend 10 minutes just taking out some weeds. And then half an hour later, it's like, okay, you're still taking out weeds. But clearing out the things that are the little nuance, like the little annoyances, that's what I'm looking for. The little annoyances that live in our lives that we just live with.
Well, and when we
Yeah.
feel anxious, when we feel, like any feelings, we're not living in the present moment where we can take action. We're living in the future where we feel like we might fail. We're living in the past where we are bringing some things forward. We're not living in the present moment. So, to get to that future level of yourself and your goals, you need to take action today and not worry about the big actions that are going to get you there, because it's never a big action that gets you anywhere. It's one step in front of the other. When I climbed that mountain in Morocco, it was, the mountaineer gave me the best advice, which was, Heather, you're going to get up the mountain just like everyone else, one step at a time. And that's what getting to goals is. That's what life is about. When we look back, we don't think, oh, wow, like I did these amazing things. No, we think back and think, who did I impact? What did I build? Who did I influence? How was I of service? And what was my purpose? And those are the questions that you should be asking yourself every day while you're journaling for 5 minutes. That's the action you can take now if you're feeling out of sorts. And out of sorts is okay. Actually, it helps you determine, something doesn't feel like it's authentically me. And then try on new things to see what's going to get you back on track. And I'll tell you, it's not the things that you're naturally going to do. It's getting more sleep, getting your diet in order, making sure that you're journaling, a 5-minute of meditation. And these are the things that people avoid like the plague. They no, that can't be that simple. Yes, it is that simple. It absolutely is that simple. Try one or all 4 of those, and I guarantee you in 48 hours, you're going to feel differently. 48 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Pull up the weeds, right? Pull up the weeds, take them out, and just bag them forever. Get rid of them. Like, if there's a light bulb that needs to be switched, like if you need to change a light bulb in your house, go change your light bulb. Like it takes almost no effort, but it's one of those things that we live with, right? But those little things are the things that hold us back from the bigger things, because we know that it occupies space in our head.
Yeah.
Right. And whether or not you think you're thinking about it, you're always thinking about, oh man,
always thinking about it.
You're always thinking about it. So just go get it done. So this is the week that you get rid of the weeds, right? What's that one weed that's been living in your life? What's that one weed that if you just took care of it, that things would be just a little bit better? And it could be making that phone call, changing a light bulb. It could be, maybe actually getting in your first 5 or 10 minutes of exercise. Maybe it is, getting that first bowl of blueberries into you instead of a coffee. Like there's so many things that you can do to get yourself put on the right path. And we talked about this before, where it's, about priming and priming yourself for success. And priming starts with activities of things that lead to better things. So if you feel good first thing in the morning, instead of like, oh man, I need my coffee, and it's like, like I see that all the time when people tell me, well, I need my coffee to get going. I don't know, that's BS. Try it for a week with no coffee first thing in the morning. Have your coffee maybe like an hour later. Like I'm 2 hours or 3 hours into my day, I'm having my first coffee. Like that's not the thing I wake up to. I don't need it. Most of us don't need our coffees to get going.
Well, it's routine, John, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
routine that you've established, and just tweak your routine to add one more thing. I hope everyone out here also brushes their teeth in the morning. So, add journaling, add a new rule where you don't pick up your phone for the first 30 minutes. Like try on these new things that are just like, I wonder how I'd feel if I did that. I've never actually tried that except for when I go completely non-digital, but I was watching a video the other day and somebody's like, first 30 minutes, I'm not allowed to pick up my phone. I'm like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that, but.
Well, they say your mind is the most, it's the most open first thing in the morning, right? So as you're transitioning different alpha waves or beta alpha waves, I forget what the actual language is, but your mind is adopting and absorbing things first thing in the morning. This is why actually a good friend of mine who went through the Master NLP practitioner course with me, she talked about this in one of her TikToks, It's like, don't pick up your phone. Pick up something that's more enriching. Pick up something that's more positive. Picking up something that's just going to support you in what you want to do. And it's that first 30 minutes that are going to make the biggest difference for you, right? So for myself, I'll just share what I've been doing for the first 30 minutes of my day is I listen to Bob Proctor. And I've been listening to his program called New Lead the Field. And every week there's a new lesson. And the first half hour of my day is just about that, right? It's just kind of opening up my mind, kind of letting it sink in. Sometimes I'm half asleep as I'm listening to it, and that's okay, because even when you're asleep, your mind's still, your subconscious mind is still absorbing, right? And I'll go a whole week with one lesson. And people are like, what do you mean? Like 1 week, like one lesson? Yeah, 1 week, every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes even 3 times a day, I'll listen to the same lesson. Because we never really get what we need to get in the first go.
That's right.
It's like listening to or reading a book for the first time. Like I remember the book you handed me, You're a Badass by Jen Sincero. I read that book 5 times. And every time I picked up the book and every time I went through it, I picked up something different. Because you are only as ready for the material. You're only as ready for, I forget what the actual expression is, but you're only as ready as you are in the moment. And every time you go through it, you're going to pick up a different moment from the book.
I pick up books all the time. And I hold the book and I'm like, there's a lesson in here. Please give it to me. And I just open it up to any page. And then whatever that lesson is, I take that in. I either journal about it or I talk about it with you, or we use it for, content. But when I'm like, I don't have time, because we've all got books on our shelves. We're like, I'll get to that someday. No, you don't need to read the whole book cover to cover, especially if you've got a bunch of books like I do, where it's not a fiction book where you do need to follow the plot. It's, just go and pull that book out and do something about it. Do something with what you've learned and what you've read. And it will be absolutely amazing. Me and my husband, we love watching Jeopardy. And we were watching Jeopardy the other night, and 2 weeks ago we had said some funny fact. We said, oh, that's going to be on a Jeopardy episode. Guess what happened on Friday? It was on the Jeopardy episode, and I got the question right. So use that information the best way you can, and it got whatever fires you up. But just you can't read a book cover to cover and do nothing with it. You might as well have not read the book at all.
Yeah, no, I love that. Listen, I got a couple of books that are on my list of things that I'm going through. And it's interesting you say that. It's just kind of, actually, I'm going to try that today. I'm just going to, just give me the lesson I need to learn based on what opens up in front of me. And one of the things I learned a long time ago, I think we both learned this, take one thing and just implement it.
That's right.
Right? Like, think about how different your life would be. How many times have you been on a course? How many times have you taken a program? How many times have you gone through something and not done anything with it? You might as well not have invested or spent the money on that particular thing, because you're not doing anything with it. Right? And even though you like, I love it when people come back from workshops and seminars and presentations. Oh man, I learned so much. Okay, great. What's the one thing you're going to implement today? And they're like, oh.
It's completely missing. It really is.
I know one of the things. Sorry, go ahead, Heather.
No, go ahead.
You go first. No, you.
I was just reminiscing. So last week we closed off our courses that we were teaching at Centennial. I was teaching a business strategy class, and one of my students gave me what I'll consider one of the best recognitions. And her comment was, because it was business strategy, we were talking about real world examples. Her comment was, I now see the world through the eyes of strategy. And I was like, oh, that's it. Take me home. That's the best compliment. Because when you can just tweak someone's mindset to see the world differently, then that's, a really amazing gift you can give someone. And that's what me and John are inviting all of you to do as well, is take one lesson, do something with it. And then all of a sudden and you'll see the world through different eyes. When me and John have different topics that we talk about on this podcast, right after we both see other people talking about similar topics, we send each other, TikToks and YouTubes because all of a sudden our minds are generating it as a really important information, but we consume it in order to share it with you guys at the highest level. So
Yeah.
that is was a compliment that I'll take for sure. And it felt so good. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, take one thing, implement. So there's another action item for you this week, right? We've been talking about pulling out the weeds in the garden, right? So take that one action, right? Or that one thing that you learned, right? Like right now, we've been talking about journaling. We've been talking about, just letting and getting rid of the different annoyances that are sitting in your life that you know you need to deal with, and just close those chapters off, right? There's this concept of open loops, right? And an open loop is something that you know you need to close, but you don't because you don't take action on it. And you have to close the loop in order to close that circle so you can move it out of the way and invite something else in.
It's actually what's holding you back, that loop. I see people do it all the time with their to-do list as opposed to their action list. I have a to-do list that has lots of things on it, but I don't put that on myself every single day. I go into that list at night and I pick the top 3 things that I'm going to do the next day, and those are the things that I'm committing to. But if I commit to my whole list, well, it's not going to happen. But it actually allows me to see how long things sit on that list, because if they're sitting on the list, they're not important. I can ask somebody else to do them, or they've expired and you don't have to worry about them anymore. So the loop is closed, because as soon as I write it into my list, that loop is closed for me until the due date comes. So think about, how many things are on your action list? How many weeds do you need to pull out? And, we're not talking about weeding, 5 acres. We're saying weed 1 garden, weed just a little part of your life, take action, and then see if that gives you momentum for the other things in your life.
Yeah. No, well, today is Monday, and I love Mondays because Mondays to me is momentum, right? So momentum Mondays is really around just pushing yourself forward and building that momentum up by taking action. So we're taking action too, right, Heather?
We are, yes.
We are. All right. So, yeah, there's just so much that you can kind of settle into if you just give yourself the space to just be open to it. Right. And that's the other invitation that we want everybody to kind of listen to as you're going through this and you're going through this particular podcast, is really around, what's that one thing for you, right? What's that one thing that you've been sitting on that you're not doing, right? Like, and we even talked about the last week, right? Like, what action do you need to close off? Pull out the weeds, and maybe there's like just one weed you need to pull out. Maybe if you go to your front lawn, actually, I'm going to probably do that when I take out my dogs. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to pull out one weed, right? So that just, and
well, here's what's going to happen, John. As soon as you pull out that one weed, your eyes and your body is going to be activated to see more. And if you, and guys, everyone listening to this, when you are connected with the earth, whether it be in your garden or your weeds, you are actually activating a whole nother chemistry in your body. So, if you've got something that you need to figure out in your life, go work in your garden, go pull those weeds. And I'll tell you, your brain and your body will work through that problem. You'll come back to and sit in front of your computer and you're like, oh, a whole new solution is now in front of me. So when we say pull the weeds, we're saying physically pull some weeds. And also, people say go take that time to smell the roses. We're saying smell the roses, but pull the weeds too, and see what will come up in your life of, yeah, it's time to pull those weeds out too. And it might be, your energy level. It might be your food intake. It may be your routine. It may be conversations that you haven't had with people at work or in the family. It could be any part of your life that just doesn't feel like it's going in the right direction, or it's just standing still. That's the place you want to look. So when you're pulling those weeds, just look around. You'll see more and more and more, and keep on pulling them.
Yeah, and I know we're coming close to wrapping up this particular episode, but the one thing I also want to invite you to think about. So for those that live in condos, go find a patch of grass and pull out a weed. Just because you don't have a front lawn doesn't mean you can't pull out weeds. But the other thing too, and this is, I love this. So it's either called earthing or grounding, depending on the terminology. But when you connect with the earth, it actually charges you.
That's right.
So being barefoot, touching the ground actually gives you more energy. So we live in a,
and there's microbes there's microbes that also.
Yeah. So absolutely. So there is an energy that comes from the earth. We get disconnected because we wear shoes. But even if you, and I know this might sound a little bit weird, but take your shoes off and just put your feet in the ground for 2 minutes. And what
Yes.
actually they've used a voltmeter to see what happens to your body when you're connected with, like when you're standing on grass with shoes and without shoes, and it actually charges your body because the earth has a giant magnetic field that charges us, right? And you think about it, when you're on vacation and you're barefoot on the beach, you feel good because you're being charged by the earth. So in addition to pulling out the weeds, yeah, I know we're giving all kinds of goodies today. In addition to pulling out the weeds, ground yourself. Touching the earth is actually going to give you more energy. It's going to give you more power as well. So as you go through your day and you sit in front of your screen, you're going to like, okay, I'm ready to
Okay,
go.
we got to go, John, because I got to go ground. I'm going to go take my shoes off and stand outside.
All right, so everybody has their action item this week. For today anyways, we'll talk about it on Wednesday as well. We'd love to hear the feedback from you in terms of what you did. But go pull out those weeds, go take that one action that you know you need to do. Go close that loop and be the person that you need to be this week. Okay? Just remember, when you shift your mindset, you shift your life. Wishing everyone a marvelous one. Talk to you all on Wednesday. Take care.